Bryan Kohberger appeared in court today for the second time here in Idaho. He was asked by the judge if he wanted a preliminary hearing, and he has opted for that, but he and his attorneys don't want a speedy one. They want it to happen 6 months from now in June. A new court date has been set for June 26th. A preliminary hearing is something like a dry run for the trial. He had a right to a speedy preliminary hearing, which needed to happen by law within 14 days. He waived that right, his attorney saying they needed time to prepare. He faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary, and we don't yet have a plea in the case, but an attorney for him in Pennsylvania said he expects to be exonerated. We also have new details about the investigation from a source familiar with the investigation that says that Kohberger wasn't actually considered a suspect until December 23rd, and that information came from forensic genealogy, and that led them to the family and then eventually to Kohberger himself. The affidavit that was released made it appear as if he had been a suspect for weeks. It turns out he had not. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Moscow, Idaho.
All right.
All right, good morning. We are on the record. This is cause number CR 29222805. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. Mr. Kohberger is in custody. He is appearing here in court with his attorneys, Ms. Taylor, Mr. Logsdon, Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings appearing on behalf of the state. This is the time set in the matter for the preliminary hearing status conference. So I am going to inquire of counsel. Ms. Taylor, what's the status at this time?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are going to ask the court to set preliminary hearing out into June.
Well, tomorrow is not going to be as significant as the one a week from now. Tomorrow is sort of a status conference. The judge will let them know what's coming up next. The most significant hearing, Anderson, is going to be within about a week, because 14 days from last week, they have what's called a preliminary conference. And that's where the state presents even more evidence to try and show up that they have affirmative probable cause to keep him. And then at that point, trial dates will start getting set. So tomorrow, as was said by the reporter, some scheduling, keeping things on track. There always has to be a next court date, but I think the most significant ones are coming up in the next couple of weeks. Well, it's so hard to say. In many of these cases, like the ones that we see with this type of horrific events, what happened with the death of 4 young college students, what is he going to get offered that he would accept? If it's his hubris that he thinks he's going to be exonerated, that he may very well want his day in court, even if he just has this belief, sort of like Ted Bundy years and years ago, he liked the idea of the spotlight. So it's really hard to say, but I will tell you, with the enormity of evidence, even in just the 20 pages that we have and the tens of thousands that are coming, it is going to be hard pressed for any, even a very good defense team, to be able to convince reasonable doubt exists in this case. It again may turn into something of trying to minimize the damage to him. Well, absolutely. They're going to they had to put a card or 2 on the table. They had to put enough on the table to make sure that this judge kept him in under no bond. And in the next hearing, the probable cause hearing, they're going to throw another card or 2. But don't forget, they have a lot of work to do. They want to make sure that all of their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted. They don't want to give the defense any more than they have to, unless and until they have to. And Idaho has discovery requirements, so we'll have that. But no. I think they're going to play their cards close to the chest for a while to make sure that everything that they've said, the forensic and whatnot, is very well founded. Oh, absolutely, prior to a trial. We may hear more about that next week. And certainly it's going to come out in discovery, because there's so many unanswered questions with that witness. Why she waited 8 hours? It could be something as simple as, college kids. They were drinking or intoxicated or whatever else, didn't want the cops in the house. There's something more about that, not nefarious, not some conspiracy. but some reason why she waited 8 hours to do anything, even with just the idea that some stranger was in her house, you would think something more would have been done than nothing. But again, I think we'll find out with the thousands of pages that are coming. It would surprise me for a number of reasons. One, the stalking, that he was looking at the house or around the house or pinging his cell phone around the house for weeks prior. There's something there. And plus, even the type of murder, if you really just try to analyze it, using a knife is a very personal way to kill somebody. It's very violent. So you have to wonder, was he infatuated? Was he getting back at being rejected? There's probably something in that background of him and the interaction with at least one of the people, if not more, at that household that caused this type of violent reaction by him. It is more than just, he picked the house by coincidence. That is not what happened here.
As Bryan Kohberger gets ready to appear again in court tomorrow, the families of his victims are still looking for answers about a motive.
It's obviously an emotional time for the family.
The lawyer for Kaylee Goncalves' family saying Kohberger didn't know Kaylee or Maddie Mogen, as far as they know.
I don't know of anybody that did know him. All of those girls were social. They were involved in the college. They were working hard, waitressing and doing different things. So the idea that he may have ran across their paths, I don't think is uncommon.
The attorney saying the Goncalves family has been in frequent contact with investigators as they look to build their case against Kohberger.
Well, anything that we have, we send over to the Moscow Police Department.
Meanwhile, spring semester beginning at the University of Idaho today. A semblance of normalcy returning now that a suspect is in custody. But fears remain.
I'm a little worried about the safety here.
10 miles away from the University of Idaho campus, suspect Bryan Kohberger was pursuing his PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. Investigators say campus police there identified Kohberger on November 29th after midnight, connecting him to the Hyundai Elantra seen near the crime scene. Now some students there are also questioning their safety and why police waited a month to arrest him, letting Kohberger remain on campus until the December break.
We find out later that he's literally a student on campus and who's walking around with us. It felt like they were trying to keep it from us or something.
The police defended that decision.
I will 100% stand behind the way that we handled this investigation.
With much of the focus on the trial, family and friends of the victims want people to be reminded that young lives were lost, like Sydney McLean, Xana Kernodle's childhood friend.
She's one of the funniest people I ever met. She was always outgoing. She was a friend to everyone she met.
Her father, Todd, who coached the girls' gymnastics team, struggling to come to terms with the crime.
I think it comes down to just basically why. There's no sense to it.